Well, good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for participating in your lunchtime with this webinar. My name is Tom. You hopefully have downloaded the presentation. Okay, there's a PDF available. And on there you'll see my email also. Okay. Probably will go rather quickly. This is trying to give you an understanding of what it takes to implement JCICS applications in CICS-based regions. So hopefully give you some insight. Can't really get into any of the coding, just will not have the time to do so. But at least I can show you some things that you need. And I will kind of apologize. I have a few extra slides that are not part of your handout. I'll try to get them updated on the handout later on. So let's just kind of march on. Okay. So the first page 2, actually, when you install CICS Explorer, it's free download from IBM, now called, it's actually embedded into CICS Explorer. Same thing. But when you install it, one of the things you'll need to install also is what's called the Explorer SDK. Okay, that needs to be put in, and that's what will be able to show what's actually going on, or all the classes and things for Java for CICS. In a sense, it will be providing in Java the identical functions that are available and have been available in command level CICS for a long time, minus one thing, and that is BMS. The Java classes have no provision to do BMS processing. Okay, can do something else, we'll see. The thought process was basically it would be back-end type programs. So when you double click on the Explorer, or the icon after it's installed, churns for a little bit and presents the screen you see, where you get to pick a workspace. Now, default is to use your user directory on Windows desktop, and then you get to pick the last portion here. I called mine JCICS, okay? Put it anywhere you want. What I recommend is that you keep different directories for different applications, different projects, okay? Hold on a second here.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Sorry, folks. I didn't realize I had to have a button pushed. Let me kind of back up a bit. I thought it was all ready to go. Anyways, so my name is Tom. You hopefully have been able to download the presentation. On there's my email for questions beyond his, and let me get marching on. So again, you install CICS Explorer, free download from IBM websites. It is now called CICS Explorer, and it installs with the installation manager. Once installed, double click on the icon. This is the first screen you're going to see. And basically it allows you to specify a workspace. Now, default, as you can see, is my Windows user directory, and then I supplied the JCICS at the tail end. Put it anywhere you want, call it whatever you want. I recommend that you have separate directories, separate workspaces for projects, major projects, or at least separate directories within a thing. Okay, takes a little bit to start up, okay? So it says you may want to have separate workspaces for each business application, right, you work on, or one for smaller applications, right? And again, we've just chosen JCICS. Okay, so you'll first time into a workspace, if you're building a new workspace, it says it takes about 1 minute to construct an initial set of folders and files. It will vary based upon the system. We have a fairly small system we use. Okay, yours will probably be a little bit faster, if you will. Oh, I forgot to tell you, if you do have questions, please do ask them. And if you, hold on a second. My phone was ringing, I wanted to turn it off. If you, if you have questions, don't use the chat, use the question section. That is so that the questions will be recorded as part of the presentation, okay? Now, first time in, build a workspace, you're gonna get this welcome screen. Allows you to pop into tutorials and things like that. If you don't care, just simply do the little X, close out the tab, and we'll continue on. You'll get into something that looks like this, the basic perspective, as it says. Yeah, I don't know if you folks have used Eclipse-based products before, but the main screens you see are perspectives. And you get into this perspective, and it's the CICS SM type perspective. First thing we must do is to, it says click right to highlight this ZOS FTP, and then click the Add button. That is so that we can create a connection between your Explorer and the ZOS machine. When all is said and done, we have to file transfer our work to the mainframe, right, so we can test it out, use it. Okay, so basically we're going to set up an FTP type connection to the system through here. Word of note, this up here in the upper right hand corner, it tells you what perspective you're in. It also, there's a little button there, you can get a list of perspectives. We're going to use a couple of them as we go through. When you click to add, you get presented with this pop-up. We call our system System A. Call it whatever you want. Host name will be the actual host name. And then port by default 21, the default FTP port. You can be behind your firewalls if you so desire, not a problem. And of course we click Save and Connect. Okay, and that will go out and establish the session. If it is able to communicate, right, in other words, it gets to the server, you'll see this pop up next, which is essentially the place where you can enter your user ID and password. You can save the password, so automatically every time you bring up Explorer, it'll automatically log you in. The only thing with saving passwords, you may have auditing people who do not want you to do that, security folks. Cannot, you know, that's up to your sites. Once I have entered my user ID and password, clicked OK, I will basically march on and establish a connection. And you'll notice that it's now down here, this FTP is down in green. You can see that I'm the one that's logged on. Okay, now, probably want to establish a connection to CICS now. I do not have CICS SM installed, so I click this highlight this CMCI connection and click the Add button. Gives me access to a single CICS region, which is all I need for my testing. Okay. When you do that, you will again see a screen like you see on page 8 pop up where I can specify my region name, same host name, and a port. Now, to connect into CICS region, I do have to have a TCP/IP resource defined, which creates a listener within the CICS region. Okay, and that allows me to connect into that particular CICS region, if you will. Allows me to maintain resources, allows me to, watch my transactions, allows me to interact, with my testing, for debugging purposes. Again, click Save and Connect, and it will try to connect to the region. The next thing that will happen is you'll see, like page 9, you'll see it pops up this screen to, again, sign on. And I can use the same credentials I did to get into FTP. I can create new ones. Again, depends upon how your security is set up. In our case, we use the same logon credentials for everything we were doing on the mainframe. Click OK, I get into CICS. It will churn for a while, a little bit anyways, and present me then with this, again, this CICS SM view. Even though I don't have CICS, it's using a standard view, or a perspective, I should say, to display this. Now, once I have done this, right, we now have, it says connections to both the FTP and the CICS region. If I click this little downward arrow in front of the region name, it expands downward. And if I click on it, it highlights, and it just shows me the basic information about the region, if you will. It is active and so on and so forth, right? And that just allows me to, see the resources in that. Now, across the top of the perspective, you do see the tabs. And so the region tab is basically the region health, if you will. The task tab next to it, if I clicked on that, it would show me all the current running tasks. MRO connections, terminals, files, transactions, and such. So I can actually see resources. As I click the various tabs, I'm checking out the resources in the running system. Again, not going to really get into a lot of that because here I'm trying to give you a perspective for working with building Java applications in a CICS region and testing them. Okay? So, kind of marching on. Page 11 to you, we need to set up a project. Any of these development tools, we have to define a project. So we basically click the window. You'll see this drop-down panel, or view, if you will. We click Preferences, and that opens up another view, and that's what we now see over on page 12. Okay, so this Preferences panel can do an awful lot of settings. Not really going to get into all the various menus and that and preferences, just kind of showing you kind of a bare minimum what you need to do to start to work with Java code in CICS. So this plugin development in the left-hand view here, part of the view, I click the little arrow in front and get the drop-down things you see, and then I've highlighted, selected, clicked on this thing called Target Platform. And that's the particular settings you see here on this screen. What we're going to do here is basically define the target for our application. Okay? And then we click the, as it says, the Add button. And that'll take us and bring us another pop-up that we'll see basically on page 13. Now, here is this target definition area. Now, depending upon how you have installed the SDK, the CICS Explorer SDK, if you had, let's say, history with this, you've been using CICS Explorer for quite a while, okay? But to, let's say, just look at running resources, things like that, you might have many different versions of CICS, the CICS SDK out here. Oops, sorry. Got too happy with the keys. In my case, you can see there's quite a few built up. Now, you have to click template, click the little radio button and highlight template, and then that allows us to click this drop-down box, okay? And as you can see, there's many different CICS versions here. Now, in my case, when I did this, I was working with a CICS 5.2 region. At the time, I did not have 5.3 fully installed. So now, notice, however, two different ways to look at this. So of all the versions, right? But starting with version 5, IBM embedded back into CICS was, but shall we say the subset was called Liberty Profile. So I got two choices here to build Java applications. If I wanted to build true WAS type applications that ran in the Liberty Profile, I could. Those would be things like servlets, right, and Java Beans, right, using Java server pages. Well, JCICS is really running straight into CICS region in its own JVM, and again, some notes coming up about that. So I've chosen just the CICS TS version 5.2, which is going to allow me to essentially create Java applications that run in the JVM within CICS itself. And they're not servlets or anything like that. They're just Java applications running in a JVM. In a sense, the complete command level interface is available, minus, like I said earlier, I believe I said earlier, BMS. We don't have the ability to work with screens, but pretty much else, every other resource in CICS is kind of available. So I'm choosing, if you will, the target environment. That also will help pick the classes, the Java classes that we need, okay? So once I've highlighted that, I simply click the next button and we get to the screen that you see on page 14. So here is, again, this target. Could get all kinds of things. Now this is basically the target here that's picked up as the Explorer SDK that's part of the installed CICS Explorer product here. And I don't need to highlight or do anything, but I could pick all kinds of different arguments, environments. Not going to get into any of that, right? So at this point in time, we have nothing to supply, right, for this view. So we just simply click Finish, and off it goes. It will churn for a little bit, and then pop up back to the target platform. Except that in this case, in that target platform screen, this is again page 16 to you, that target platform screen now has, again, that particular set of code I wanted to bring in. We need to make sure that the check mark is there, right? It should have been automatically checked, right? If not, put the check mark there, and then click the Apply button. So that is applying to the workspace, if you will, that we're using, the fact that we're going to be building for CICS TS version 5.2, right? That basis of code, if you will. Okay, and then once that has done, or once you basically have applied that, if you will, we simply click the OK button, and it goes to the next. We're now back to the CICS perspective, the CICS Plex SM perspective, okay? Didn't want to get too many panels here, too many interactions, but basically we would see a bit more in our project. We would actually see a few more files and folders brought into the project. At this point, since we're not getting in heavily into the coding, not that important. I shouldn't say that. We're going to see those, Brian, because now we're going to build the project. That just set up the basis for the target. Now we're actually going to create the project. And that will include some of the things we just selected. So click on File. We get the first pull down larger menu. We click on New. Okay, and that gets the second little drop down. And we simply click Project, right? And that's going to build, right, the project we need for our purposes. However, got a couple options we got to pick. So once we click Project to create this new project, we get this next pop-up, page 17 to you. Did it again. Okay. So I have to click this little drop-down arrow on the plugin development. We're building essentially what's going to be called a plugin project, and that's what we pick as plugin project. Not used to this screen. I keep clicking and it takes me to the next slide. So we're going to do a plugin project to basically build the Java code, and then we simply click the next button. Okay, so here's where we get a little bit creative. So we get this little pop-up window like you see on page 18, and it says we need to name our project. So within the workspace, right, you could have a workspace where you're going to create more than one project. We're only going to be able to deploy and test one project at a time. But we can have several within the workspace that we're working on. Pick a name. Most sites will probably have some sort of a standard naming convention they want you to call it. You'll see where that's going to be kind of important a little bit later on. Okay. Mine I just simply called JCICS_test01, creating a little test project. And you'll actually notice that as I name it, you'll start to see where it will plug in the location. In other words, it's wherever your workspace is, within the workspace, it actually is going to create another folder, and that'll actually be the project name. So whatever you call it, you'll see that being populated. We need to click or click this little radio button, OSGI framework. Now, and standard is good enough. Again, I'm going to work in a JVM server within the CICS region, building essentially a command level Java application, working straight in the CICS region. Okay? Not a WAS-based application with server facing that, but a pure CICS-based program, right? So that's what the OSGI is that framework for implementing, right, that type of project or that type of code. It would already have the create a Java project, right? The source folder and of course the output folder bin there. We're going to let all the other choices default to standard and click next. Now you get this new plugin project view pop up. You'll see your project ID in the version. Okay, within the version, you'll see it come up with 1.0.0.0.qualifier. We are not really going to need the qualifier So I say basically we have removed the dot qualifier from the end and just end up with 1.0.0. In CICS version 5, we're allowed to define, although I'm not going to do that in this case, we're allowed to define an application. We're allowed to have an application and give it a version. Okay? And again, the first one here is a version, major version. This first 0 is minor, consider what's called a minor version, and the last 0 is what's called a micro version. And you can actually have multiple versions running in your CICS version 5 region now. We're not getting that sophisticated at this point. We're trying to build our first one. Okay? And again, I named put the name the name is the same as the ID, if you will. Okay? But I just got rid of that. That's automatically populated. I just got rid of the dot qualifier. But I'm not going to get into the versioning, if you will. The other thing I had to do was this execution environment. There's a drop-down that allows me to pick the particular environment. Could be multiple different versions of Java. Now, one of the requirements of CICS TS version 5 is that we use Java version 7. So I've chosen that to work with, right? And again, it's the standard edition of Java that we're going to use. I then tell you under these options, we want to click off, uncheck, if you will, this generate an activator. We're going to build a main class. We're going to build a real executing piece of code, not like the activator to activate the classes. Okay? Click it off, and that basically turns off that generation of that bit of code, if you will. And then click the finish button. A lot of little panels going through, a lot of little steps, if you will. And now you're going to get this little pop-up view and basically says you're about ready to go to this plugin development perspective. In other words, you're switching perspectives. Simply click yes. And now we get into what we see on page 21. And now you can see I have my little project, JCICS Test 01. It is talking to the JRE system, right, this JRE library, so it's going to use that Java 1.7 to help build things. We'll see a bit under source. It's also created this thing called this meta interface. And we need to do some things here, you'll see. So we click, there's a tab that will be here for dependencies. We click on that to allow us to start making changes, if you will. Can't see the button. I didn't shift things over. I didn't like resize parts of the views. But basically under this thing called imported packages in the center of the screen, the button here is to add. Okay, we want to add, as it says, some imported packages that we're going to use. So when I click that add button, I get another pop-up. Now, here's where we start to see some things based upon the choices we made. So a few panels back, okay, I had said I really am going to build for a CICS 5.2. So the naming convention that seems to be done for a lot of the development environments in Java that IBM supplies, the SDKs, is com.ibm, in this case, .cics. Common environment, IBM stuff, in this case, CICS. So as you start to type that in, right, this select a plugin, if you will, as you start to type that in, you have to start typing that in. You'll start to see this list narrow. It starts out with quite a few more things, but as I start to type it in, you'll notice it brings up, it narrows it down to only the com.ibm.cics. Now, if I were building web services in Java, I would be typically also bringing in this pipeline. The doc here is going to bring in the documentation into your project, the Java doc. I have it separately. I've installed it separately as an HTML set of stuff. I can look at that. That's all the documentation for the classes and things. Okay, and it can be installed separately. I've highlighted and essentially selected the CICS, the com.ibm.cics.server. Now the 1.5 is just for version 5 CICS. Okay, so it's classes for that. So by selecting that, and then it says, oops, did it again. When you've selected what you need, and again, if you need to do more than one, you simply hold down the control key and you can select multiple packages. Well, I'm not going to do web service. I'm just going to build standard JCICS type applications, so I've only chosen the CICS server-based function. Okay? And I do Control S together. It says when you've selected, right, when all have been selected, do Control S to save into what's called the manifest file. We're going to get to that here in a minute. You're going to have to make some changes here. But the manifest is to tell CICS the pieces and parts of my Java application. Okay? Once you've done that, right, the screen will stay here. You simply clicked OK then, and we'll go back to page 23 to you. And this is the, again, our Java plugin project perspective. Now, we'll get to this manifest here in a moment, but that's updated some things in the manifest file, and you're going to have to make some changes, you will see, okay? However, it says we now completed the initial setup. Now we need to get to the Java perspective to start giving, supplying our Java code. So click the window, get the big, right, pull-down menu here. Click on or highlight or hover over, if you will, open perspective. And then we get the smaller window, and then you can see the Java. I've selected that one, the little Java pop-up there. And once you click that, you will get into what you're going to see on page 24. Now, once again, I have kind of hidden a couple things here. Didn't want to get too many panels. But this folder, it says now we're going to create the actual package. In Java's case, we're going to build not a program per se, but a package, right? You'll see. And what I've kind of hidden here a little bit is this highlighted, if you can see it there, it's the source folder, SRC. I've right-clicked on that. I get the first pop-up menu, right? Did new. And then once you hover over new, you get the second pop-up, and we've chosen package. Click on the package, right, from the second drop, as it says. So now we're going to build our package. Now, we get a little pop-up window like we see on page 25, pop-up view, and we got to supply a package name. Now, we're in this source folder, and we supply the package name. In this case, I called it com, somewhat a common prefix, as it says, followed by the identifier which reflects the application location. Business unit, in our case, I just used Themis Inc., our company. Could be business unit, could be branch. You're probably going to have some sort of a standard naming convention here, I would assume. That'll say this is what we want you to, reflect the application where it's going to run or whatever. And then again, I just suffixed it with JCICS, right? The last portion is the actual package name you desire. That's going to show up in my Java code, you will see. And it just controls the actual package name for Java that I want. Be real careful. Everything we're doing here, I probably should have mentioned, everything that you'll see here is mixed case. Java and working with these things is very case sensitive. Okay, so be careful, how you key things. It will be important to you. Click Finish. It churns for a little bit, not much. And now I get what you see on page 26. So I now have created, right, a Java package, and then they actually created a folder with that name, com.themisinc.jcics. Okay, and again, I just kind of hidden it by the pop-up panels. Didn't want to show you too many screens, if you will. So, right, we now need to right-click on the package that we just created, as it says. That's the package folder. Select New and Class from the second pull-down. So in Java, we're building classes, right? Not programs per se. The equivalent, we're going to build a Java program, but it's referred to as a class, right? So that will give us the basic Java class file. Now when I do that, I will get a little pop-up, page 27 to you, to create the new class, okay? So again, there's my package name. You'll see that gets done. But then I give it did it again. Then I give it an actual, if you will, class name. In my case, Resolve is what I called it. So that'll be the actual class name for that. Public class, okay? The superclass will already be there, java.lang.object. We don't need anything else, okay? Now, it says I also have clicked this little check mark, right? Public static void main. I'm going to build, in a sense, a main Java method within the class. So a main Java class, if you will, okay? And that's typically what you're doing. You're going to build a main method to your classes. So class being like a program, it's kind of like the main entry point, if you will, for your program. Click Finish, and we get to the Java perspective. Now, pulled a little slight trick on you here, but we can now see, right, under my project, I have source, there's my package, and my program name, resolve.java. It actually builds a skeleton Java class, basically Java little program for you, okay? Now, cheated a little bit. In this case, it says the last wizard built a skeleton Java program, right? We've copied in a complete one. I had actually had a complete one kind of, borrowed, if you will, piece of code that I had done before, and then rather than key it everything, because you get a basic class file, not much there. So I've copied in, if you will, my Java program. And you'll notice the package name, com.themisinc.jcics, what I supplied, imported this com.ibm.css.server. Several panels ago, remember we selected the environment and we selected the Java classes, right? Now, if you have the documentation installed separately, right, the HTML files, like I do, pardon me, I can look at all the various classes and whatever. Now, a choice here for you, I guess. I have basically said, let me include all of the CICS server-based classes, the .asterisk. What you brought in with the panel is what's referred to as a Java archive, a .jar file. In that jar file is many classes. I think the last time I looked, there was something like, oh mercy, 40 or 50 classes, hundreds of methods, okay? And it's all within the documentation. Now, a lot of times you'll see people importing only the classes they need. I just brought them all in. Makes my Java application slightly larger, if you will. However, that way I don't have to worry about, oh gee, I forgot to import this class, let me import it. Let you make your choice whether you want to just bring in everything and start to use it, or if you want to bring it in pieces as you need it, okay? Now, public class resolve, the name I've given it, right? And then basically standardized Java code, if you will. This give you some insight here. COM area holder that you see about a third of the way, 2/3 of the way down the screen is the class to, in a sense, allow Java to bring in the COM area for you. Again, this is kind of like a standard command level application, okay? So that brings in a COM area into an object I call CA. And then I can say, execute, passing the COM area to this thing called execute method. And that's actually the main method, right? So we got the main method, then a technique my one coworker taught me, I guess. When main method is nothing more than instantiating a new object called resolve, and then executing the method here that we call execute, passing it to COM area. So it can work with things. And again, maybe I'll show you this bit of code in its entirety if we got time when we're done. I don't have it here. So you could build the program, etc., from here and whatever. So then once that's there, expand the little triangle if it's not expanded, this meta INF, okay? And then double click on the double click on the manifest.mf file to edit it. Now this is the manifest that got built. We were going through that one little importing of packages and that. And it's brought in, as you can see, com.ibm.cics bundle. So we're creating the classes there. Puts in information about the fact we're using 1.7. You can see the bundle version. So we're going to have to create what's called a bundle resource in CICS. Here we're just going to create the bundle object, if you will, that we're going to ship across. Now, this last line, this CICS main, comes up empty. Okay, I'm only including one Java class. So you notice its name. Package name, right? com.themisinc.jcics.resolve, my class name. If you're going to build a package with multiple Java classes, you're going to have to add to this CICS main-class line all of the classes, okay? Just start keying them out there on the end, separated by commas or spaces, okay? But you're going to end up creating or keying every class that you're going to have. We have our class that we teach people coding. We actually code JCICS applications and test them like you would a command level one. And we end up with, I think, 5 classes in our little package, okay? So I would have 5 names. They're all going to begin with the package name, right? com.themisinc.jcics, and then just .class1, and then so on, right? So we have to put in all the classes. This is actually building a manifest. Basically it's going to compile the Java code, etc., ship off the actual byte code, the class files, into CICS to be installed, etc. Okay. Control S to save the changes when complete. So once you've made the changes, Control S will save that away, right, into our workspace. We then get back to the Java perspective. We'll see our source code again. Again, covered up the things. So we've gone through, we've built our programs, our Java classes, etc. Have gotten them error-free, if you will, as far as coding and syntax and the likes. Okay. So now we got to essentially build the, or I should say, build the bundle to deploy. Okay. So we simply right-click on the white space in the view, this package Explorer, anywhere in the white space. We right-click, and up comes this drop-down menu. We do New, and then Other, right? You hopefully can see the other highlighted at the bottom. We get the pop-up menu that you see on page 31. Okay. May have to do this little down arrow and then click on to highlight this CICS bundle project and then click Next. Get the little pop-up window that you see on page 32. Now, it'll come up with basically your class name and underscore bundle. So it just appends to the project name, I should say. The bundle project will be your base project name underscore bundle, okay? And again, we get the versions, okay? And I shouldn't say that. I have put in the underscore bundle just to keep it the same. Click Finish. So we've created a bundle project. It says now we need to connect, by the way, we're on page 33. Now we need to connect the bundle project, as it says, to the our other project. So we right-click, and again, you get this folder here, this JCICS is the bundle project we just created. We right-click on there, New, and then once again, Other, okay? And we get that, right, this pop-up menu now appears. We click the little arrow, the little triangle as it says before CICS resources, we get this list. And in there will be this OSGI bundle project reference. We click that to highlight it. Remember, we're building a standard CICS JCICS type application running in a JVM server within CICS itself, right? We're not getting into any kind of other things like atoms or events. This is a standard JCICS thing. So pick that, click Next. We get a pop-up like you see on page 35 to you. Okay. And if you had more than one project, you would see a list of them, and you can select the ones you want to include in the bundle. Now, again, I've kept it simple. You can have multiple projects. You can deploy them all at once. We're just going to use our test one. And again, the other thing I have to put in here, now this is what you're going to have to deal with your administrators with, the JVM server. This is a resource, and I'll show you the resource definition. I've tacked it on the end of the slides. Hopefully I can get these things in. May go a couple of minutes over, but whatever that is called in your environments, I called mine THM JCICS. It's the JVM to run my JCICS applications, and I can have several of these in the CICS region. So whatever that name resource is, I have to supply it here. Your administrators will set it up and hopefully tell you the name. Click Finish, and off it goes. Okay, it says you return to here with this, right, this JTest OSGI bundle now, right, is there. So that's kind of like packaged everything together, if you will, okay. I've got my classes, and everything's kind of been put together. The manifest, so CICS knows, okay. Now, page 37. So now we need to export the bundle to our system so we can test it. So I right-click on the bundle project, okay? And down comes this menu, and then pick this choice. Export bundle project to ZOS Unix file system. Part of the setup the administrator is going to do for that JVM server is give it a working directory in Unix system where it can find things. Also, we're creating a bundle project here with CICS Explorer. And by the way, the only way I can create the bundle project, right, is with CICS Explorer. I'm going to show you a bundle resource I define, and what it is, it's the resource that tells CICS where this thing is being deployed to. So we're going to have a directory created for every CICS region that we have. Could have multiple directories. I'm just having one where I'm going to deploy all my Java-based applications to. There will be separate folders you'll see created that will contain our particular project, if you will, but the bundle will the bundle resource I'm going to show you will tell you where to find all that. So when we click this export, it actually is going to deploy, right, compile the Java code, the class to the bytecode, and deploy the manifest and everything into there. Now, if the pieces are already defined to CICS, like the JVM server I'm going to show you, the bundle project, in a sense, it's going to institute a install of this bundle into the CICS JVM, right? So now I can get on the CICS and test things, right? Or I can test my little application. Again, I'm not getting into any of that because I just don't have the time. I will give you some insight here in a moment, okay? That may take a bit, okay? Now, oh, I'm sorry. We get this next pop-up, page 38 to you. So export to a specific location. In other words, you're going to have a predefined directory. Click Next, and we get page 39. Now, almost done with the slides that you have. I got a few tacked on the end here, you'll see. Just to show you some of the resources I would define as administrator. I'm a couple minutes over. Bear with me for a minute or two more. So in the bundle project right now, you'll notice parent directory /u Themis CICS TSJ. User file portion of the file system, a directory we call Themis, kind of like a general one we use for a lot of our subsystems. And then this CICS TSJ is a directory I created to hold my Java JCICS bundles. Okay, and then as you can see, there's several here, but here's the one, oops, I did it again. This JCICS test 01 underscore bundle dot 1.0 dot whatever, okay? My project name, my project bundle project name, and then the version, because again, I could do versioning, and that is. So every, the names I've created, right, it ends up creating a directory. So I don't have to have, right, I don't have to go out there. This directory here, this JCICS test 01 bundle dot whatever dot 1.0.0 is created by the deploy process we're doing. And in fact, what I'm doing here, as far as panels I've picked, as I'm redeploying, made some changes and redeployed things. So the clear contents, right, of existing bundles checked, and that gets rid of all that stuff that's out there and redeploys the whole thing. It refreshes all. Okay, click Finish. Now it will start to compile, and this is the last page you have, page 40. It will start to compile the Java and start deploying the pieces. And you'll start to see this progress bar moving. And I'm basically at the end as this console window gets popped up. And you'll see this green bar moving. But basically, it's going to now tell me all the little things it's created. Okay, so it's actually deployed everything. Oops. So this, exporting bundle will keep on going, and it'll start to show you. Depending upon the size of your project, it may take a few minutes to deploy it, but it's actually compiling and building all the resources, and then it will automatically, again, if you want to think of it this way, if the bundle was already defined to CICS, it will actually do the equivalent of a new copy like a program. It'll refresh the bundle, refresh the Java resources in the JVM. So once this is redeployed, or once it's deployed, you can test it, okay? So that is step by step how to go through and create a piece of JCICS code and deploy it, minus all the actual coding, okay? Now I have included a few extra things, and I'll try to get the thing updated on our website, okay? But I, as the administrator, have to do a few things, and I wanted to show you that there's some magic, if you want to think of it that way, behind the scenes. In my CICS startup, I have this JVM profile directory, and I'm basically giving it a location, as it says, it's a working directory for the server resources, okay? That has to be predefined. Now, as we start to do things, it starts to create. Now, when I create a JVM server, I'm about to show you that, it builds these directories. In the real world, if you're going to test your applications, standard out, standard error is going to be where messages from the Java JVMs are going. And if you turned on JVM tracing, you wanted to trace something, the Java internal trace now, it would put it out here. So these are primarily for error test, to go look for errors, or things like class not found or Java exceptions, all kinds of things. It'll have the messages out there you can see. And if you were doing Java tracing, we would see that. So these are directories. Now notice it's basically built under the thing, and then we got like a double layer here, the CICS regions. It automatically also builds a directory, the name, and then the last node here is the actual JVM server name, because I could have multiple JVM servers within the CICS region, okay? So again, not all the resources, but I had to define this JVM server. You notice the name here, THM JCICS. The profile, this is a member that has a bunch of controls or options I pick for setting up the JVM profile. Again, I as administrator set up, but this is pretty much the standard one that IBM ships as part of CICS to do JCICS-based applications, the OSGI standard. And again, the LE runtime options. And thread limit of 32 basically says I'm allowed to have 32 concurrent executing classes in this JVM. It's kind of like, transactions I can do concurrently, if you will. I have a second JVM server here I kind of bolded and highlighted. This one here would be for JSON support. 5.2 allows me to do JSON. In this case here, we do what's referred to as HTML documents. Again, there's no BMS, but if I wanted a screen interface, I could do a couple different ways. I can do documents, or I could have a standard-based CICS application that does BMS, and these programs be nothing more than linked to, okay? So in this case, notice I've defined a bundle, and I've told it where to this CICS TS directory, and again, the bundle name. So I've defined the bundle resource, and then I deploy to it. Okay, so your systems folks are going to have to define the bundle resource. And what that really is controlling is the name of it's going to define the bundle directory where you're deploying to. And that's how CICS knows where to go find that manifest and everything we've deployed. I highlighted some resources, doc templates. Again, if I wanted HTML files in a browser. Here I've done one extra Java program. But on the last page, I believe I've got for you, Java programs, unless somebody has seriously modified the auto install program in CICS, Java programs need to be defined. So again, I have to define resources. Now I could do this for CICS Explorer if I had the proper authorities, but for normal application developers, you won't have that. Okay? Wait here, somebody has asked a question. I just noticed. CICS 1.4, I'm using TS5. You have to reinstall, you have to install the SDK for version 5. In other words, all you see is CICS 1.4. That says that when you installed CICS Explorer, right, the only package that was the SDK that you installed was for 4 dot whatever. You actually have to have a separate install for CICS SDK 5. And that's going to come from wherever the repository is that you brought in from the CICS Explorer. I can't tell you what that is because it could be different places. So you need to bring into the the CICS Explorer environment that SDK. Every CICS version has a different SDK, and that's what controls what you're going to see there. Okay. So one last little thing, and then we'll be done. Again, I have to define programs. So here's my resolve program, right? It is 31 bits, so it's CICS. It has to run as a CICS-based application. Administrators say, oh man, that means they can modify CICS stuff. Not really. Even though it's a JCICS-based application, okay, it's running in a JVM, I really don't have the same kind of access to standard storage areas because Java doesn't understand storage. It doesn't understand structures. It doesn't understand get mains, if you will. I'm creating objects. So it's running CICS mode because that's just the interface that IBM has built into the JVM to talk to CICS. It needs to be a CICS mode application. My application cannot harm any of the standard transaction storage areas because it doesn't use them. Things are kind of null and void to Java, if you will. It is a JVM, and then notice I've named the JVM here, server, I want to run in. So there's all the ties, and then here's the class file. Please notice it's the package name.resolve. So whatever I call my package, and in this case here I have a slightly different package name because again I was doing a couple different tests. And I have a few other Java programs. You notice they're part of the same package. So you could build multiple programs, right? Now, this is an environment where I was blending between standard COBOL code and JCICS code. The programs I'm building here that are Java that you see on this screen are being linked to by standard CICS programs because I was trying to show this particular group of people that I built this for that we could interact between Java and standard COBOL code, not a problem. So the programs were actually doing BMS maps or COBOL, and then I was passing off to Java programs to do parts of the processing, to read files. The Java code was reading files, working with temporary storage queues, things like that, but had no direct user interface, although it could. The class I've just kind of completed for our use is going to be a totally Java code environment, and I'm going to use doc templates. Again, back up here briefly. I'm defining doc templates, which are going to be HTML, if you will, straight in a browser. So the Java code is going to work straight to a browser, right? Just like a standardized type screen. So that's pretty much it, okay? And again, as far as testing, debugging, if I'm in a standard CICS region, CEDF can be turned on for the transaction. There's no difference in defining a transaction. The transaction is just going to reference a program, which could be a COBOL program, could be a Java program. Depends on how you want to start, what your first program is to start your transaction. I could turn on EDF. You're going to see almost identical to a command level COBOL application about to execute command execution complete. So you'll see the actual methods, calling to do various file processing, whatever, temporary storage, just like you would see in a normal program. If you go a step further and implement what's called the Java Persistent Debugging Architecture, JPDA, into the JVM, I did not do that at this point, then I could use my GUI CICS Explorer, and there's a debug perspective, and I can debug from the desktop. Okay. In this case, when I put this together, I was because of the blending of the COBOL and Java code, I was using standard 3270 type, emulation and standard screen processing to do the screens. And again, the back-end code was all Java based. So hopefully it gave you a little insight as to how simple it is to really build Java applications. They can get far more complex. Again, I'll try to get the thing updated. You do have my email. If I can answer questions more questions later, by all means, please send me emails. Otherwise, thank you for attending, and go have a good lunch. I'm going to end the session now.